Today we're talking about 8 common mistakes that beginner witches make. Maybe you're a beginner witch and you want to avoid these mistakes, or maybe you've been practicing for a while and you're curious if any of these are ones that you can relate to. I just want to start off with the disclaimer that this in no way is to poke fun or be rude to beginner witches. These are just things that I have noticed a lot on the internet, but also in my own practice. I made some of these mistakes myself, and they are called common witchcraft beginner mistakes for a reason. So the first one I want to talk about, and I feel like this is a big issue with the age of, witch talk and a lot of social media coverage of witchcraft, is poor resources. So some of the information you may find on social media could be accurate, not all of it is, and this is one of the biggest problems with fast media, especially TikTok. Oftentimes a lot of the information we find on TikTok is very watered down. It is often missing a lot of valuable, important information because someone tried to fit it all in just a tiny little video. Not only that, anyone can make a TikTok, anyone can make a video, anyone can make a post. And though a lot of information could be accurate, you do have to make sure that you are checking your resources. You have to make sure that you are cross-referencing things to make sure they're actually true. Because there are a lot of videos out there that really aren't accurate at all, and they mislead a lot of beginner witches. My advice to you is to read books, and read as many books as you can, because books themselves have to go through a longer process to be available to a wider audience. They have to be published, and the publishing process is fairly long. Usually they cite their resources at the end of the book. So books, for the most part, there are some pretty bad books out there, but books for the most part are a lot more reliable than witch talk, for example. And I think a lot of people are very drawn to witch talk and, Instagram and Pinterest and these places for finding resources about witchcraft because it's fast, it's easy, it's accessible. And I completely understand that. Though a lot of the time books are a lot more accurate, and yes, reading takes a little bit more time, a little bit more work and effort, but if it's a practice that is important to you, then you will invest time in it. You will take the time to learn. You will take the time to educate yourself. So though I understand that social media and witchcraft can be very fun, and it has made it a lot more accessible and trendy, and a lot more people are being exposed to witchcraft in a way that it hasn't before, and I think that's awesome, you still have to be careful about where you're getting your information. Alright, so number 2, magic is not one size fits all, and I think this is something that is so important to talk about because a lot of people get caught up in this idea that it's this way or no way, this is the way magic works, or this is how you do this kind of spell, or this is the only opinion about this topic, and that's just not true. I think this one size fits all idea definitely comes from things like witch kits that we see on the internet. The beginner witch kit, you need a wand, you need these specific herbs, these specific oils, these crystals, and there you go, now you're a witch. And that's not really how it works. There's so many different types of practices. There's so many different origins of magic, and there's so many different cultures around the world that take part in similar practices, but with different, beliefs, slightly different stories that they tell or pass on to generations. So the way I see it, the most important thing here is just to learn as much as you can. Read as much as you can, as I mentioned earlier. Read from different perspectives, because what you read in one book doesn't necessarily mean that's the, end all of all things. Many practitioners, many witches will have different perspectives, and that's why I like to read a lot of novels, because you gain new perspectives, and from those you can really start to develop your own opinion, your own beliefs and everything. But it's not one size fits all, and you'll notice that when you read different books, the practitioners aren't always going to agree on the same thing. Another thing I want to mention is when reading about different topics, different beliefs, it's important to learn the whole story of them. Be respectful. Don't just water it down and take little bits and pieces of things. Learn the entire origin of it. Learn the whole story. Really be respectful of that. And that is one of the things that you can do to avoid appropriation a lot of the time. And yes, there's certain practices that are known to be sacred and not used from other people outside that culture. Just in general, in order to be respectful of a practice, you have to fully learn about it. You can, use multiple aspects from different cultures, different beliefs, different practices if they really speak to you. That's basically the definition definition of an eclectic witch, someone that doesn't really categorize himself but is a little bit of a combination of multiple things, and I consider myself eclectic in nature, but at the same time I am still taking the time to do my research on it. So I think that's a big important thing is, you know, really do your reading, really understand what you are working into your practice, and understand different opinions. Be open to different opinions. Understand, again, magic is not one size fits all. The next thing I want to talk about is consumerism and witchcraft, and this has become an increasing issue with witchcraft becoming trendy. And I understand that it's, on one side, it's good because, you know, it's become a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more accepted. People that maybe weren't able to access this or learn about this before can. But the problem here lies with people believing that they need to buy all these fancy materials when they don't. That's not what witchcraft is. Witchcraft isn't consumerism. Witchcraft isn't having the fanciest crystals, you know, all the trendy tarot decks, all the fancy witchy clothes or whatever it is. You know, that's not witchcraft. Witchcraft is a practice. It is a practice that you have with yourself. It's an intimate practice. It is, you know, your beliefs, your intuition, your intention, you know, your power, your personal power. Those are all things that can be found within you, not outside of you. And I think this is where a lot of beginner witches go wrong. Again, they buy these witch kits, which I'm not a big fan of witch kits for this reason. Because again, it puts witchcraft in this box of, oh, this is witchcraft. If you have this beginner witch kit, this is how you become a witch. That is not true. You don't need those things. You could also just be really resourceful and collect things from your kitchen, from your backyard, from the woods. A lot of people completely break the bank when they start off, and they spend so much more money than they need to. Oftentimes, you can just start with what you have at home. Another big problem with this is a lot of companies start to try and bank on this trend. And this is something that has been really frustrating me and a lot of practitioners out there. And I actually will link an article below for you guys on this. It's very interesting. I think it's something that a lot of witches need to read and become aware of. But there's companies like Sephora and Urban Outfitters that are trying to bank on this trend for no other reason, but they see that this is trendy right now and they're trying to make money off of it. They have no place in this. They don't have any background in witchcraft or any of these practices, and they've been coming out with these little witch kits and, you know, crystals and things like that, and it's just to make money. One of the things this article mentioned, and I thought it was such a great point, was that you wouldn't see Sephora or Urban Outfitters or any of these large companies selling a beginner Christian kit or a beginner Catholic kit or something along the lines of that. And though I understand that these are religions, I know witchcraft is not a religion in itself, it's still wrong because it's still a practice that is very sacred to a lot of people. And for these larger companies to just market it for the reason of they just want to profit off of it is very wrong and is literally appropriation. Now, I have personal opinions about what appropriation is, cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. I'm not going to get too much into that because I know it's a very controversial topic and not everyone's going to agree with each other, and I don't want to get into a feud with people on the internet. I do believe that there are ways to culturally appreciate, respectfully learn the culture and utilize it, certain things, in a way that, again, is respectful to the culture. But specifically when it comes to cultural appropriation, in my personal opinion, the worst thing that you can do is take something from another culture purely for the purpose of marketing it and making money with zero, you know, respect or really any knowledge of that practice. This is why I will never buy any witchcraft products or supplies from somewhere like Sephora or Urban Outfitters, but I will definitely buy witchcraft supplies from a local occult shop, a local spiritual shop, a small business that makes these products because they are passionate about it, because they grew up with this practice or it ran in their family, or maybe it's something that they found later in life, but they are super passionate about it and it changed their life and they are practitioners themselves. These are the kind of businesses that I am going to purchase from. I am not going to purchase from a company that is making it solely for profit. And in my opinion, that actually makes the product less valuable, less magical, because it carries a different energy. You know, imagine buying a crystal from Sephora that they're like, oh, okay, it's trendy, let's start selling crystals because we can make a lot of money off of it, versus a company that is selling crystals because this is what they love and they utilize crystals in their own practices and they understand the intention behind magic and they understand the different vibrations and uses of crystals. You know, like, it's very different. And this is coming from somebody who used to work at Sephora. But I honestly think that large companies like this have no place in any sort of spiritual practice whatsoever, you know? Like, you stick to your stuff, you stay in your lane. I think this is just taking advantage of people and trying to get their money, and I think it's very ethically wrong. This is another issue that we have with white sage in particular. As many of you know, white sage is used for smudging in the indigenous cultures, and the issue is a lot of larger companies are like, oh, we're trying to jump on this trend, and white sage is becoming increasingly more difficult for even the indigenous to get a hold of it, even though it is a sacred part of their culture. That is wrong, because, you know, big companies are trying to bank on something because they think it's trendy, when that is being completely disrespectful to the culture, and that's when we run into the cultural appropriation. So these are things to really think about as a consumer, as a practitioner, as a witch. You know, where are you getting your supplies from? Are you getting them from ethical sources? So buying ethically, but also you don't need it all. You don't need to spend all your money. You don't need to break the bank, because that's not at its core what witchcraft is all about. All right, so the next mistake that a lot of beginner witches make is not pairing magic with the mundane. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong, because they get so excited, and I understand that they get so excited about their magic that they forget that this is still a physical world and you still have to take tangible action, and you can't rely on magic to just fix all your problems. Let me give you an example about this. Let's say somebody does a money spell or a spell to get a job, but then they don't hand in their resume. Now, that is just being lazy, and that is just being dumb, because maybe the spell does work and it does bring new opportunities into your vicinity and it does draw a job opportunity towards you, but unless you actually apply for the job, you're not going to get it. Magic isn't like, you know, you wake up one day and suddenly you're on the payroll of this place and you're suddenly working this job and you didn't have to do anything for it. That's not how it works. We're still in, you know, this world. We don't live in Hogwarts or something like that. So this is a mistake that a lot of people make. You know, don't rely on magic to fix all your issues. Don't think that it's gonna do everything for you. You still have to put the work in. You still have to take action on things. The best practitioner is one who knows how to work magic and mundane together in this really effective way and learn how to use magic along the way within these steps of taking action. Someone who explains this amazingly is Jason Miller and his Elements of Spellcrafting. I just looked at the book because I'm like, Elements of Spellcrafting? I'm like, is that what it's called? I talked about this book in my last book video, so I will link that below if you guys are interested in that. But Jason Miller is really amazing at talking about the practicality of magic and how to actually work it in a way that is successful and understanding how to work the magic and the mundane together. Number 5, being too concerned with the details of a spell. I see this a lot. A lot of beginner witches get very anxious about making mistakes, which I can completely understand. You know, you're new to it, you're a little bit nervous, you don't want to make any mistakes, you want your spells to be successful, but they get so caught up in the specificities of the spell that they kind of lose sight of what the point of magic is. And the main thing being that it's about your intention, and it's about what the ingredients and the steps and the symbolism and all of that means to you. So if you're taking a spell from like a spell book you got, for example, and you don't have a specific ingredient and you start panicking, you're like, oh, I can't do the spell, or it's not going to work because I don't have this ingredient. You can actually make do with things that you have on, like, in your house. You can make do with what you have already in your vicinity. You know, some of us have a select collection of herbs and we don't have all of the herbs that there can be. We don't have all of the herbs that are in our books and stuff, but we still make do. And I think that's why making your own spells is often even more effective personally, because a lot of the time when you're taking these spells from these spell books, you're just doing what they told you to do because you believe that they know more than you. When in reality, you don't actually know why they chose these ingredients. You don't actually know the symbolism behind them or the meaning, and maybe the herbs or maybe the steps that they took in the spell don't really really, resonate with you. Maybe it doesn't really mean a lot to you personally, and if anything, that's not gonna be very effective because the spell is supposed to be personal to the practitioner. So in reality, switching out ingredients for things that resonate better with you, or just writing your own spell, could have that much more deeper meaning and be that much more successful. And that's not to say that the ingredients don't matter, but they are even more powerful when they mean something to you, when they carry symbolism to you as the practitioner versus just copying something that you see in a book. Another common mistake a lot of beginner witches make, and a lot of people that aren't necessarily witches but they just make assumptions from the outside, is that all witches are Wiccan. So this is something that I just wanted to clarify for people that don't know already. A lot of you may already know this, but Wicca is a religion. Witchcraft is a practice. A lot of Wiccans do indeed practice witchcraft. Some of them not necessarily, some of them just, carry the beliefs. However, not all witches are Wiccan. Not all witches choose a religion. Some do, some are pagan. There's even some witches that grew up Christian or Catholic. Some of them still hold on to many of the beliefs that they grew up with, and they do still claim themselves to be a Christian witch or a Catholic witch. That is possible too, because witchcraft in itself is not a religion. It is a practice. There's also a lot of witches that choose not to practice any sort of religion whatsoever and don't have religious beliefs. And you won't know these things about a witch unless you ask them, unless you learn specifically about their practice and their beliefs. So you really can't ever make the assumption that, oh, they're Wiccan, or oh, they're pagan, or oh, they're this, they're that, because every witch is going to be unique. And witchcraft is a practice that anyone can practice, anyone from any background, any beliefs, any religion. You can be a male or female or non-binary, doesn't matter. Witch itself is a non-gendered term. Anyone can be a witch, anyone can practice witchcraft. Number 7, witchcraft does not need to be complicated. And I think a lot of people get wrapped up in this idea that, everything has to be super elaborate, and I have to do these super aesthetically pleasing, elaborate rituals, and I have to do these all the time, and that is just not realistic. That's not life. If you ask any practitioner, especially ones that have practiced for a long time, you'll learn that most of them do not do elaborate rituals and spells on the daily. They just don't, because who has the time and energy for that? And as much as it's nice to do it for maybe the bigger events, sometimes people will follow the wheel of the year, or sometimes some people will follow the moon phases, or sometimes people will just do it when they feel it's necessary. But it's not always elaborate. And I personally believe that the most successful practitioner will find ways to incorporate magic into their everyday routine in very simplistic ways that do not take a lot of time and energy, because that is a way to make everyday magical without burning yourself out and without being ridiculous, because in reality we don't need to do all these elaborate spells all the time. It's just not necessary. Sometimes magic isn't required, but doing things with intention can change your day. And I do have a video specifically on easy magic that you can incorporate into your everyday routine that doesn't take a lot of time and energy, so I'll make sure to link that video below for you guys. The final mistake a lot of witches make is that they feel like they need to practice all the time. And I think that this comes from social media in particular, because I have felt this pressure myself. We see the aesthetically pleasing Instagram pages or the TikToks or the beautiful blogs and all these things, and we follow these witches and we believe that they must practice all the time. Wow, I apparently don't practice enough. They're posting a new spell every single day. They're posting this, they're posting that. When in reality, a lot of the time, people that do this is their job. Posting on social media is literally their job. So of course they're going to put a lot of time and work and effort into it. Of course it's going to look like they're doing spells all the time. So it makes a lot of real practitioners feel really bad and guilty because they believe that they're not practicing enough. They believe that they are not putting enough effort, enough work. When in reality, a lot of us spend a lot more of our time on researching and reading. The practice is all about learning. You're always learning new things. So a lot of the time I'm spending more time reading and learning about things than I actually am practicing. So the thing I really want to drive home with this is that you don't need to feel bad. Don't feel guilty because you feel your practice isn't measuring up to what you see on social media. Because just like everything else on social media is not real. Practice when you want to practice. Practice when you feel like practicing. Practice when it's necessary. Learn to incorporate it into your day in different little ways, but don't feel pressure to do anything elaborate all the time. We also just don't need magic for everything in life, and a practitioner will learn when magic is necessary and when magic is not necessary and actual action is necessary. Yes, the more we practice, the more practice we get and the better we get, but there are different ways to grow these skills, like mindfulness, meditations, and things like that, rather than doing elaborate spells daily. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know in the description box below what common witchcraft mistakes do you often see, or which ones did you experience in your beginner stages of the practice. I'm curious if you agree with any of these things that I've talked about in this video. If you like this video, make sure you do give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. It definitely helps out my channel a lot. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because I post new content every single week and you guys don't want to miss out on it. I hope you guys have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye bye, guys.